Hello, and welcome to Old Scary World. So I came across something recently, and my first reaction was, I gotta make a video about this and share it with you guys. Now, it's not necessarily related to the old world or anything like that, but in my opinion, it is related to resets. So it's a little different than usual, and it's a little bit more casual. It's not so serious. It's kind of just a weird kind of anomaly or kind of a lesser known thing about San Francisco history. So what you're looking at here is actually a house in the late 1800s. And as you can see by the sign here, it says toilet and furnished. So what that means is this is like a tiny home, but in the late 1800s, and this is part of Cartown, also known as Carville, also known as Carville by the Sea, and this was in San Francisco on Ocean Beach. And here's a better picture of it. So what they're telling us is that in the mid 1800s they started selling these things here. Sutro actually was one of the first people to do it. And Sutro, if you don't know who Sutro is the man who's responsible for the Cliff House. Adolf Sutro, to be precise. And so he first moved in there, and then it became kind of fashionable, and that was in 1893. And rumor has it that people were living out there in shacks even before that, even during the gold rush, but he was the one who made it fashionable. And so the reason that I want to do a video about it is because San Francisco is one of my favorite cities when we do this old world reset kind of research. And so this picture in particular is pretty interesting because everything's so abandoned. Like, they're telling us that people lived in these things, and there's no windows. Now, I don't know what the story with this picture is. Maybe these are ones that have yet to be used. These are just kind of waiting for somebody. It's really strange how they could drag them out into the sand, because I'm sure some people know how hard it is to carry things in the sand. So the logistics of that alone. But I'm not saying it didn't happen. Obviously it happened. And it's just kind of an example of how what we're seeing now with the tiny homes and people living in shanty towns, it's not even anything new. It's all part of like when they do a reset kind of thing. That's my theory, at least, is there's signs that a reset has occurred or a reset is beginning. Sometimes it's a slow unveiling. And there was restaurants, there was businesses, there was all kinds of things, not just homes, but it was like free. Well, it wasn't even free, it was just really cheap housing. It was like a community. And we're probably going to see that happening more and more. We've already seen it with the tents across the country, the tent cities and the homeless encampments. And that's all part of the reset. And here's another image here. We see kind of like corrugated metal. We see like a boy walking here. And this was in, like I said, this was in Ocean Beach in San Francisco. And so you can look that up. And I think this might be like a, I don't know if that's a car door, for a gate. I couldn't find a lot of pictures, at least a lot of good ones. Here's kind of like a, kind of a more pleasant kind of thing, but it's actually just a colorized version of the previous image that I showed you. And it's kind of like a postcard or something, I don't know. It says Carville by the Sea, San Francisco streetcar suburb. So I just thought it was really interesting. I had never heard of this before, and I grew up in the Bay Area, but apparently it was a thing, and I just had never heard of it before. And this is it from above. We can see some of it here. So, and then we can also just see how arid the landscape was back then. Out on the beach, it was like a wasteland here, all these dunes. And I believe that this was also the 1800s, and it was pretty undeveloped out there, supposedly. Here's another image here. And the thing that strikes me as odd is that they're dressed nice. They have their, their big gowns, and everybody's in. But see, living like this wasn't only for the poor and the indigent. It was also it was like fashionable. It was like bohemian. It was like the in thing to do for some people, to like slum it up a little bit and like live like this. And that's what's really interesting. And it existed, like I said, from the mid 1800s till about, I guess it completely disappeared in the 30s. Although some people say that it started to disappear in the 20s. And what's really funny is that in my research, when they wanted to start getting rid of it, they had this Ocean Beach Cleanup Society or something like that. The Oceanside Improvement Club. I got it right here. And they had a motto, and the motto was, "Make clean today by sweeping and burning up the debris of yesterday." And in 1913 held a ceremonial burning of the cars. Most of the neighborhood disappeared by the 1920s. Now that's really interesting that they would use those words and to burn them. What do we see now? We see things being burnt up, and then the old and then the new. So that's really what pushed me over the edge to make the video when I read that little tidbit. But we'll talk about that more later. So here we see like a windmill kind of situation here. Could be just for decoration, just could be ornamental, could be to actually produce some type of energy, because they lost the Antiquitech, so they had to like go back to more simple means. And then here we see the signage. I mean, even out there they couldn't get away from advertising. And you have the horse and buggy, you have the people with the hats, all that kind of stuff. But this isn't what this video is about. It's not about the old world so much. It's just a weird little thing that happened, and I think it's more evidence of a reset rather than old world. And you see what happens when you reset. So I got another one here. Some people talking here, standing in the. I've actually been out here, obviously, so I know what these plants are. They're like succulent kind of things that grow out of the sand dunes. So some people might see this and think it's weird, but it's really not, I guess, because there's a lot of moisture in the air because it's by the ocean. And they're like succulent type things, and they grow out of the sand. But anyways, they're sitting here, standing here, shooting the breeze, shooting the ocean breeze. And and it's a sign of the times. But people see this kind of stuff nowadays popping up, these shanty towns. It's nothing really all that new. It's like Hooverville, if you guys are familiar with Hooverville. That was a name that was given to shanties during the Hoover administration, and we see that now. So you make some correlations there. So this is the Cliff House in, I believe, 1895 or so, and this was the same general area, and you can actually see Carville back here in the distance. It's not the best resolution, but I just have to take my word for it that it's back there, basically, back in here too. You just can't really see the little shanties. But the reason I included this picture was because I want to show, okay, so this is San Francisco here in like 1895. There's plenty of people, they all dress the same, they're all wearing black and top hats and all that kind of stuff. And this is still here, more or less, this walkway And this here, it's built out a little bit more. The Great Highway, Highway 35 in California, also known as the Great Highway, and at least that portion of it. Anyways, the point is that okay, so here we have before the reset kind of situation, and the shanty town was there, Carville, but like I said, it was more of a fashionable thing. It wasn't a necessity. Now, with that said, it became a necessity after the 1906 fire, earthquake, reset, whatever you want to call it, and they left it looking like this. So then, after this, they were forced to go to this because a lot of people were burnt out. So I always wondered what happened to a lot of the people after this fire reset, and I guess they moved out to the beach, and they lived in old cable cars that they bought for cheap because it was already there too, but it got a lot bigger. And that's actually one of the reasons that they got rid of it, was because after people started moving out there because they had nowhere to go, it expanded. So by the 20s they had gotten rid of it. So roughly 14 years after this whole thing, they got rid of it. But once again, like I said, it was just really interesting, the choice of words and just the kind of mentality that they had, and how that ties in with some of our research here, that their motto was, once again I'll repeat it, make clean today by sweeping and burning up the debris of yesterday. So I'll just leave it at that. It's kind of a shorter video, and as always, thank you for watching. Goodbye.